Hey, today's episode is so cool because I got the opportunity to sit down with a good friend of mine. Her name is Jacqueline Cleland, and she's running a Minecraft youth ministry that has exploded into something so unexpected that she's even surprised. And it's making everybody who hears about this thing sort of rethink online gaming ministry and what it should look like. And I can't wait to hear you about it. And wait, before you decide that online video gaming ministry isn't something that you need to hear about, please give this a chance. I think it actually might turn you a little bit on what students are capable of in video gaming ministry when they're excited to learn about Jesus and they're feeling good and seen in their environment. So stick with me, listen to this. It's amazing. Let's get going right now. Well, hey there and welcome. My name is Mike and I'm a church helper. And my goal today is to help your church make every decision on purpose. Now, before we get started, just a friendly reminder that you can hear this episode on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can watch it on YouTube. There's no transcript this week, but there's lots of great stuff that you can find on our website if you're looking as well. Now, today, I'm presenting a conversation that I had with chemistry major turned theological student and all-around amazing leader, Jacqueline Cleland. Now, she originally went to school and graduated as a chemist by training. She did her medical training and graduated with honors. And during the research phase of her studies, she actually created a new way of detecting TB medication in wastewater to help limit the creation of strains of TB and that were resistant to meds. Now she's a theological student at St. Andrew's Hall in Vancouver, which brought her clear across the country, and she's actively involved in various church programs while she's completing her studies. She's an amazing person. You're gonna love her so much. You're gonna love listening to her story, and this story about how she took this Minecraft ministry and how it's just exploded into something amazing. You're gonna love this story. It's gonna be great, so I can't wait for you to hear about it. I'm gonna stop talking. Let's jump into the conversation right now. Hey, Jacqueline, thanks so much for jumping on here with me today and talking about your Minecraft ministry for a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I always love talking to you. And quite frankly, I love talking about anything that gets youth excited for church.
Oh, that's awesome. So you and I were having this conversation a little while ago, and we were talking about some other stuff. And then you brought up this Minecraft ministry, and, kind of almost to be polite, I was kind of like, yeah, like, what are you talking about? What's that really about? And then you just dove into this ministry that, like, sometimes people talk about like a digital ministry or a video game ministry that's surface level, but yours has gone like 3-4 layers. It's wild. So I want to hear the story, how it started, how it came about, how kids got involved. Just like spill it. Like, let's hear it all. This sounds like so much fun.
Because of COVID, we had so many more new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Our life became online.
Right.
And most of the teens that I was working with, they love being online because they love Minecraft. It was hard to get them to come to faith formation because they loved Minecraft.
Right.
They might have been addicted to Minecraft, but we're not going to cover that today.
Okay.
And so we were sitting there and we were like, we want you to be excited to come. We want this to be a blessing. They need community. They need interaction. And we were like, well, I had taught a summer camp on Minecraft before. I was like, hold up. They love Minecraft. I'm good with Minecraft. Well, not as good as them, they'll point out gladly. Like, why don't we explore this? Now, it was a bit of a rocky start because Minecraft, video game, oh, yeah, no, the kids are doing that. That's not church. And people would rush over it and be like, no. They're like, we want real faith formation. It's like, hold up. How are you taking Jesus and God out of everywhere? I'm pretty sure God is everywhere and humans can't restrict that. And what we started looking at, Minecraft is a sandbox video game.
Okay. So can you explain what Minecraft is for people that might not know what it is?
Gladly.
Yeah.
So Minecraft is a sandbox video game. So basically, I want you to picture you're in a sandbox, and with enough creativity, you can make anything. You can make towers, you can make elephants, you can make those little pressed seashells that you make on the beach.
Right.
As long as you have the creativity and drive, you can do anything.
Okay.
Anything. And that is what we loved about Minecraft. So at the start, we were like, okay, we need a covenant. We went back to Noah and the Ark and God's covenant with a rainbow. And we're like, we're having a covenant because everyone's on different levels. So we start off with an agreement. that we're going to do our best, try our best, and no side projects, and we're going to support and love each other. And
Okay.
like a lot of our agreements came down to what felt like the 10 commandments of love thy neighbor, don't be too envious, help out. It was great. And our first one we did is we looked at Genesis at the start. We looked at Eden.
Okay.
And we talked about what does Eden actually look like? Because we have like this theory, Eden's perfect, Eden's beautiful. We love Eden. But
Right.
most people, if you ask them to describe Eden, they use beautiful, perfect. We love Eden.
Right.
You can't really build beautiful, perfect, we love Eden in
Mm,
Minecraft. You need blocks, you need skills, you need to know what's going on.
right.
So we started pulling up the Bible passages. And these youth who loved creating in Minecraft and being part of Minecraft were like, actually, no, wait, looking at this passage, the river's supposed to flow this way. Oh, hold up. And then we're talking about things like we want to make different fruit trees. And the poison apple or this apple of sin, the apple of knowledge, was it an apple? Not all versions agree it's an apple. Wait, some say it's a pear. How do we make a pear in Minecraft? And we started getting down to these little conversations about details and jumping in. And
Right.
at this point, we were working on individual servers. So we had our own worlds separately, but we were
Okay.
on Zoom talking. And what we did is we went to share screen at the end to show our Edens. And the best part is none of them were the same. And
Right.
they all had like little qualities that were in the Bible, but they had these rationales for every decision they made. And some even made Adam and Eve.
Okay.
And it was cute because they put like little name tags above their head to say Adam and Eve. I don't know who else we thought we were going to find in the Garden of Eden, but we were accurate. And it kept spiraling and
Right.
spiraling. And we started, one of my favorite ones, which is probably terrible, is we did the lost sheep, the 99, the shepherd has
Sure.
to go look for one.
Okay.
And we started looking at it, and you can make sheep in Minecraft if you go in creative mode and you can do spawn.
Okay.
So we were in that moment, God, and
Right.
we had
Sure.
spawned our sheep. But sheep do not behave. And we were recording a little video of this. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure we had 99 sheep and one that was lost.
Right. Right.
But people only figured that out because they weren't pre-planning after the fact. So they
Right.
kept spawning more sheep. And then they started just killing off the other sheep.
Oh
And I
no.
was like, hold up, you guys. Like, remember, we're doing the role of God. Like, we're the sheep. And they just had this moment of like, wait, it would be so much easier for God to kill us off. And I was like,
They said that. Wow. That's actually a really deep thought.
it is. And I was like, this is not something I can prompt them to in a regular Sunday school
Yeah.
because it's kind of morbid. But
Right.
when you're in the role, thinking things through and living through them, you're
Yeah.
like, hold up. Like, God is making some really loving choices because this isn't easy. And we're in a video game.
Right. Right. Right.
God has an entire world, and God still said, no, you are my beloved child. I'm protecting all of you and that lost sheep.
And you were able to, and again, you weren't going into saying, this is the study we're going to pick, and you didn't have like 10 things you were going to hit. It was almost like you had this group of kids that were creatives on this platform, and you just said, here's the start, and it was up to them to sort of almost do the research so that they could create the world accurately.
We had a template. We knew that we wanted to cover some things, and we knew that we wanted to make videos to show people who didn't understand Minecraft, hey, this is actually this. But
Right.
there was a lot of freedom given, and even more as we progressed, because they were reading the Bible on their own. They were getting interested on their own. They were having questions that they'd never thought about before, and they
Right.
wanted to address them. And when someone comes to you saying, hey, I was reading this and I want to explore this more, very rarely in my life have I ever been told you're supposed to say, no, don't do
Right.
that, sit down.
Yeah.
But that's like, we were doing parables at one point,
Okay.
and one of them brought up a parable that I didn't have in like my mental repertoire. And they're like,
Okay.
hey, can we do this? I had no concept of what that parable was in that moment.
Sure.
And I said, yes.
Of course. Yeah.
Because one thing they find fascinating is not only are they exploring the stories, but they're seeing how it is practically going to work out.
Right.
So things like when you build your house on sand versus on stone, how
Okay.
do you make the sand disappear? Like the actual engineering elements of it,
Right.
they sit with that and they're like, they explore it, they think about it. So they have a deeper appreciation than ever before.
That's so interesting.
And oh, we start diving into some questions we don't always think about because this is now our world. We
Right.
made a world where we can all be together, we can all work together, and we did the parable of the prodigal son.
Okay.
And what we did because of camera angles, we made it a loop so that you could follow like the life cycle of the son.
Okay.
So that was fun. But we started diving into, well, what would our money be?
Right.
Because Minecraft, the money, it doesn't really look like money. And
Right.
we're not going to throw diamonds. So we ended up talking about what money looked like, the coinage, and everything at that time. And we settled on sunflowers.
Right.
But we dove into, what do rich people wear? What do poor people wear? Like we started
Right.
a textile conversation instead of
Wow.
like brown being more common and like
Sure.
purple being the color of the rich, and diving
Sure.
into, well, why? Well,
Right.
because it came from mollusks, and we talk about the lady who sold purple dye and why she was rich and
This
why
is
she could live on her own. And
unreal.
suddenly you're just hitting these levels of like, oh, oh.
Yeah.
My favorite, and because it pertains to me, is we looked at the passage where he's losing all his money on food and friends, other things, but we didn't mention those.
Sure.
And we talked about, well, what food would they have back then? And we
Okay.
talked about like diet differences and how with their diet differences, they were actually shorter than us.
Right.
And it was so cool because we had figs and olives. And because I love potatoes, they added potatoes. But it was just, they jumped into a level of like, oh, so what season could this have come from? What do they eat? And it was so beautiful. And we talked about how, well, why aren't they killing a pig to eat?
Right.
Because pigs were easier for us to find at that time than cows.
Right. Right.
And it was just so beautiful. And the conversation going and being in that moment and thinking about different implications
Right.
and just feeling the frustration for the brother who stayed.
Right.
Like we had people play the brother who spent all the money and the brother that stayed. And the one who played the brother that stayed was kind of like, I got to do nothing.
Right.
Like, this wasn't about me. And it's like, sometimes it's not.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes
Interesting.
it's okay.
It,
And
it's so interesting how, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, how like how you guys have read a story 3 levels deeper than most people would, right? Like you read, I do this, I write a sermon or you do whatever, and you pull the meaning out of it. And that's really important and that's teachable. But you guys went, okay, well, here's what the meaning is, but also here are the minute details. And then here's how those minute details affected the rest of the story. And that only happened because you needed to actually create those details.
well, and it's part of really embodying part of the word
Yeah.
because there's so many options. And I'm glad that I have a group that's mildly perfectionist like me. So we're like,
Right.
we want this right. But there's also a lot of creative license of like understanding the underlying values of why these things impacted it. Because we have to make different choices because we don't have all the same options.
Right.
So it's been fascinating because reading different versions of Bible translations kind of became a bit of a thing.
Right. Of
Because,
course.
well, how do you know if one, we're not saying any part is false, but how do we know if one is more accurate than the other?
Sure. Yeah.
Which one can we understand more? And we kind of came down to like, what do we value and what do we need to connect to understand the story, understand the message? And that's a bit meta, honestly, when you're going to Sunday school and you're learning how best you learn and understand.
But that's so cool. I mean, these students of yours, they've learned to read their Bible on a completely different level than most of us would even think about it, because of what was required of them and how they needed to be creative.
It's now, I'm sure they're never going to watch this, but I'm in awe of them
Right,
simply because they dove into this like it's world building and they're exploring it and they're having fun.
right,
And to them, well, I talked to their mother yesterday because she knew I was going to do this, and it's some of the most engagement, well, some of
right,
their mothers, that
right,
they've ever had for their youth.
right.
And they're having this thing of like, the parents don't understand the Minecraft,
Sure.
but the kids are showing their computer screen like, hey, I
Right,
did this today.
right,
And I haven't had kids do that since they were very young, because it's kind of like I sat through, I'm done, I have a worksheet, like I checked this box. But no, these kids are coming to me and they're like, hey, so I was thinking about, and
right.
ooh, could we redo this parable? I thought about it in a new way.
Oh, wow. That's just like cool. That's so cool. You're not only getting kids to read, but you're getting them to reread.
And I'm getting them to think on their own time. Like, I'm not there with the carrot of Minecraft. It's, hey, we're in this God created world,
Yeah,
created by creation, where we are together exploring and loving God.
so
And you're
cool.
loving God. We had this one time and I loved it. And we decided to build our very own church
Okay,
because we didn't have a church in our Minecraft world. And we thought if this was a church group, we should probably have a church.
sure.
So we entered in the discussion of, what do we need to worship? What do we need to feel connected to God? Like,
Like, what do you need to have available?
yeah.
Okay,
And stuff like, there's different questions of church building. Like, do we need a church building to be a church? And people have different answers. And
sure.
some people are like, oh, we can worship in like a high school gym. It's fine. Some people are like, no, we need the vistas. We need the art. We need everything.
Right, right, right.
So when we were making this church, we had that discussion and we had
Cool.
to hunt down for our dyes. So colors became a conversation.
Right.
And this is with people who maybe would have been like, yeah, whatever before, but when you have to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
what I loved is they loved the steeple. They loved the stained glass.
Right.
And they thought there had to be a preacher. They had the podium, everything. So they trapped a villager in clear blocks at the
Oh gosh.
pulpit to have like a trapped villager there to always be preaching. And they named it after the minister of the church. And I'm just like, oh, please don't trap the real minister. Please don't trap
Oh,
the real minister.
that's so funny.
And so, like, I said stuff like this, and we needed pews. And they felt that it was important to have some people in the pews,
Right.
which a lot of churches agree. And I my own thing. I was like, I don't want any more trapped villagers, please. Like, we are not
Yeah,
trapping people in church.
sure.
And we had a conversation of like, oh, everyone sins and it's people who go to church. Like, it's a recovering group that we try and do better, not a perfect group.
Wow.
They trapped zombies in the pews because they weren't perfect people. And it's like, I support this. I question this. Feelings on this. Like, I get where this came from and I see this. But if I took a picture of this to send to people outside of Minecraft, they're going to be like, what?
But here's the thing, they're like you said, they're thinking of, so that sounds goofy, and it is, of course, right? But like aside from the metaphor of how many churchgoers do you know actually just sit there like zombies, we'll just leave that alone for a second. Like the fact that they landed there on such a deep, like they really, they're critically thinking about what their faith and their scriptures look like. When did you figure out this was going to be a thing? Like somebody comes up to you and says, we'd like to start a Minecraft server, or we would like to, this is a common interest. And, Jacqueline, I know you. So you're like the youth leader that's like, yeah, absolutely. Let's go this. Like, how long until you went like, whoa, like we've stumbled across something here?
See, I have that feeling every time we meet.
Right. Okay.
But the first time we gathered, it was a little bit, it wasn't as smooth as it is now.
Okay.
But I had this moment of everyone was exploring it in their own way.
Right.
There was no worry about in church we do it this way, in church we recite, in church we think this. It was a, hey, we're diving into the Bible. Oh, hey, yeah, that's a good idea what you just mentioned. Or, oh, maybe think this. And this was a group discussion. And no
Right.
one took it as like, I am the expert, you are the peons, listen to me. It was more of
Wow.
a, hey, we're all exploring this. And we came up with different things. And we were supposed to do Eden in just one day, be a little bit like God. Humanity, it stretched it longer because we kept looking at other things and they're like, can we go back? Can we add this? And
Wow.
eventually we had to be like, okay, we get this. Let's move on. Let's keep going. And I had started the discussion about a month before this actually became a reality because people were a bit hesitant
Right.
because it's a video game and oh, they're not going to do anything, not going to learn anything. They're just playing and like it's not a good use of our time.
Right.
And it's like, hold up, we have a strong interest in this. If we try it and it goes south, the youth know that they were listened to and heard.
Sure.
And we did try something
Right.
that we're interested. We showed we cared. And if we have to adapt, we adapt. That's part of what COVID has shown us is
Sure.
we are very resilient and adaptable. But the thing is, the youth hit the ground running faster than I did.
Right.
And they were coming up with ideas and questions and concerns. And I think if they had the choice, we would have done Minecraft all through the summer.
Right.
But we started an ultimate frisbee league for them instead to get some exercise.
There you
So
go.
they're
So-
excited for September to come again because they're like, hey, this is in the middle of summer, or I guess
Right.
the end of summer.
Right.
They're like, hey, are we going to do Minecraft again?
Very
Like,
cool.
are we going to jump into this again? What
Yeah.
are we going to learn? And
That's so great.
I have yet to have kids come up to me in summer, like when Sunday school is not like their regular rotation, to be like, hey, so what's the idea? What are we doing? And it's just, it makes me happy because I'm sitting down and I'm creating a curriculum, more of an outline because I want to give them the space. And I'm going, so what are we going to explore this time? What did we touch on that they want to dive in?
Right.
One thing that they really like is parables because there's so many ways to look at them, so many different ways to understand them. And here they are in a format where they can go wild. You can take all the ways they think they can interpret it and they can dive into them. They can explore them. And if they don't like the way that one version of their understanding the parable works out, they can jump into another.
Right.
And it's
Helps it
fascinating.
create, it helps hear different words, see different language, spark different creative moments.
And I love it because this is going to be so silly, I'm sure, but down to like, what type of grass do we think they had? Would it have been cut or not? And just,
Wow. There's something I've never considered. Sure, of course. Yeah.
well, like the grass we have now that's very short, that's not our wild original grass.
That's right.
And they
Yeah.
start jumping into like the ecology of this area. And I'm just like, I want to do an entire course on like this stuff. And like
Yeah.
they're brushing over topics. I have to admit, I have like my Bible on my side, my cell phone on my side. I have like notes that I think they're going to ask about on the side.
Oh my
And they
goodness.
never touch anything I'm prepared for because they're like, oh yeah. So when thinking about this in regards to this that we talked about 4 weeks ago, I actually think this and oh, but would this be okay? And it's like, yes, yes, it would be.
That's amazing.
And they're becoming their own experts. They're becoming comfortable in their faith. They're
Right.
becoming comfortable of saying, this is what I believe. This is what I see. This is what I understand.
Right.
And they're taking ownership.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm loving about this. Yes, they're exploring creatively, but they're knowing their faith.
Right.
Through Minecraft. And it
Yeah.
feels like it's a sort of a joke. How to build faith, build in Minecraft.
Hey, there you go. But
It's working.
yeah, that's incredible. Okay, so 2 questions, then we'll get you out of here. The first one is somebody that hears this is going to want to replicate it. somebody's going to hear this and go, that sounds brilliant. How do I do that? So assuming somebody is going to, we'll say, borrow the idea, how would you suggest, like, if knowing what you did now, if you were to replicate this with another group of kids, what, would you basically just approach it the same way? Would you say, hey, let's start this thing and ask a couple leading questions and sort of just let it fly? Or what were those things that you learned in those first few that helped you get to the place where you are now?
Know your youth.
Okay.
And I don't mean that as someone likes apples. Know their learning styles.
All right.
Because we have some people who are much more detail oriented, some people more community oriented, and you have to find a balance. And always start with a covenant, not that the leaders make, but you build together so they're vested and engaged. We always had everyone on the Zoom screen as well when we were doing Minecraft. That way we could verbally talk and we could see people's face reaction, so we know how things are going.
Right.
Because that's very helpful. We started off on independent servers and then moved to one because that was how our projects were working.
Right.
But not everyone can have a server that can host everybody.
Right.
So you have to take some logistics into consideration.
Right.
What are your skills? What resources do you have? And we always had the check-in of the covenant before we started. We always had group prayer at the end. We talked about our goals for what we hope to achieve, and we made those goals kind of together. And we knew overall what the plan was for the session, even if we didn't know the details. So stuff like, we're exploring this parable today.
Right.
And we divvy up the tasks based on interest,
Right.
not always based on skill level. So sometimes things took longer. I have to admit, before I got a mouse for my laptop, I died a lot because the keypad is not the same.
Right. Yeah.
So
you can die in you can tell it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Yes. There are logistics. Yes. Okay.
Yes. But there's different settings. If you're in creative, you can't. If you're in survival, you can. We started in creative.
Right.
But we moved to survival because it gave more of a community aspect because we were working hard together.
Right.
Where creative, you don't necessarily get that same sense of community. And community was something we were looking for. So we chose that. We always had a bit of a debrief. Sometimes the debrief was, oh my goodness, I accidentally mixed up this ore with that ore, and like now it might burst into flames, but it's okay. Someone will fix that for me next time. Yes, please, please, please. And it was, I think what you have to realize is you cannot be afraid to empower other people to make decisions. This is not something where I can be like, I am the queen of this server. You will listen to me, only do what I say. You have to be like, hey, the resources, they're scattered about. We have to hunt for them. We have to look for them. We have to work together. And you know what? By pure luck, someone might have a skill or a tool that you don't have. And you have to be able to say, hey, can you help me? Or, hey, can you show me? Or can you do this?
Right.
And you learn team building. And you have to be able to stand beside people and just be like, this is what we're doing together in community with Christ.
That's wild. That's just, this is just, I could talk about this all day. I'm sure you could too. So a couple of just things that I pulled out of there. You make a plan, but sort of leave it open-ended, let your students lead. You talked about having a server means you're working together, but also like a Zoom conversation or something on the side allows you to be communicating. So you're not just silently sitting in your room playing the game, you're all talking together. And then do like an actual debrief after. Stop playing the game for a little bit, talk about what you did, talk about what you learned, talk about what worked.
Heads up on that, Minecraft is very hard to get out of. So we usually have a 10-minute and then 5-minute warning. So that way you can start mentally pulling yourself out, because it really is another world.
Right.
And to just be like, and we're done.
Right.
It's jarring even as a leader.
Interesting. So you have to be careful about those areas as well. That's really good. Okay. If we put your contact information, attached to this episode, and anybody ever wanted to ask you about this, would that be okay?
I would gladly give my email so people can reach out over email.
Great. I will make sure that we attach that to the show notes for sure. last question, maybe one more or two more, like what's your top build story? You showed me once, and I'm going to ask you for pictures that hopefully I can show throughout this episode as well. So maybe you can send me some of those. But I think you showed me a temple once, maybe with a pool. It was featured in like an Easter service. Like, was that like the biggest build, or what was what's one of the big projects that you're like, yeah, that was one that we really loved?
Oh, there's the Garden of Eden. There's our home church. We made so many things that it's hard to pick a top. But like, just a side tangent of one thing that this let us do is we can build a lot of things, tear it down, kind of like a Buddha board. You can wipe on, wipe off.
Right.
And what has been so cute is some of our lasting memories are things that will not last. Like, they built houses for our Easter pageant for like the background screens on Zoom.
Okay.
And, like, it's spreading everywhere because it's challenging the idea that it has to be face to face for
Right.
someone to know your input.
Right.
You can have people excel in their creativity in different ways. And I'm curiously thinking about what are some of the kids' favorites. And we actually made a giant mountain that I think would probably be their favorite.
Okay.
Because we had a lost sheep up there at one point, and it was a huge mountain, and we had to hike like all over the island to go and find it because it ran away from the shepherd.
Right.
And it was hilarious because we started looking at like geology and how like mountains have peaks and they're not squares, and like, how do we actually do that?
Right. It's just next level deep reading your Bible.
It really is. And I have to admit, it's the first time that I'm not asking them to. I don't
Right.
like, I'll put a verse in the chat that they want, but they dig it up themselves. They look into it, they question it, and I'm proud of them.
What a cool spot to be in as a leader. That's good. Well, thanks so much for spending a few minutes talking to me about this. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. I love it so much. I've never played Minecraft. I don't know what you need. I don't know what I need to download, but at some point in the next 12 months, I would like to come and play. Can I do that? Can I come and play with you guys and just see it? Is that even possible? Do I need a person? Does he need to be alive? I don't know how this works.
Well,
can I be a zombie in the pews?
No, you cannot be a zombie in the pews. I'm sorry. Maybe you are in real life. I'm not going to ask that question.
No, I'm at the front. I induce the zombiness. I'm the one.
Oh, so you're the villager trapped by the Caesar blocks that can never leave.
There is a pastor or a speaker somewhere listening to this going, I do feel like I'm trapped in a glass box in the stage and I can't go anywhere. That's the most relatable part of this whole story.
Yep. And you got to stay away from the zombies like during COVID and in real life because they might kill you. So like social distance, even in Minecraft.
That's so funny. Thank you so much for this today. I'll put your contact information there if anybody wants to get a hold of you. Thank you for just your faithful service to your students in a super creative way that turned itself into just one of the deepest Bible study tactics I've just ever heard. So thanks so much. This was great.
My absolute pleasure. I hope that you get to play Minecraft soon. I hope it helps your faith.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.